My father died a week ago from a heart attack. It really sucks that he's gone because now it means I'm an orphan. Figuratively speaking, of course. My mother died when I was 10, so I had already been without a parent. My father had taken care of me for the best part of my childhood and teenage years. I'm 26 now, and it's shocking to have two parents gone. You'd expect your parents to die when you're 40 or 50, not this soon. But I suppose it doesn't matter when they die. It still rips your soul apart. It's especially bad because I haven't been able to properly grieve. Not after what I found. My dad left me his old house and his will, so naturally, when he died, I went on over to see what he had left behind for me. I went over today, and let me tell you that it had a lot of stuff. It almost seemed obsessive how much stuff he had, all of it being organized into boxes that overflowed his closets and spilled out into the hallways and rooms, leaving very little room for me to scuttle right past them on my way through. It's not hoarders buried alive bad, but it's not normal either. He must have lost it after I went off to college and started to hoard stuff. Everything from purses to photos to books and more were in those boxes. I spent a long time looking through all this, thinking it was all just junk. Most of it, I decided I'd see what I could put into a yard sale and sell, and the rest I'd throw away. I was interested in the stuff that might be of value, like the old TV my father had in the living room. I used to watch so many things as a kid on that television, and it had a big nostalgic value to me. Anyway, I decided to go look for it and found it nestled between half a dozen boxes of old VCRs. I found myself turning on the old TV, which didn't have any signal, displaying nothing but static. I was surprised it still worked after all these years, and I decided to see if there was anything I could watch. I knelt down on my knees and began to look around. It was pretty dark in the house, with the boxes bouncing the afternoon light around the room, and the piles of boxes making it darker than it really was. I looked around and noticed a lot of boxes near the old TV had old VHSs. I noticed that the VHSs were mostly from the old video camera my mom used to have when I was a kid. They were all home videos, in fact. My father must have kept all of the home videos he and my mom had filmed when I was young, in an effort to preserve my childhood. It was the 90s, so home videos were all the rage with parents who wanted to capture every moment of their family life to watch later on. My mother was no exception. It was essentially her hobby, her being a film student and all. She had loved to film just about darn near everything that went on in my childhood before she passed. I looked at a few of the videos in the box. One was labeled Junior's 6th birthday, and another Family Barbecue, 7/12/95. I was bored and had time to kill, so I took the VHSs out and popped them into the TV. I gotta say, it was fun and nostalgic to watch the old memories. My mother and father's wedding, me playing with my old friend down the street when I was 9, my father and mother talking to friends and laughing at dumb jokes at a Halloween party. I found my eyes had filled with tears. I didn't realize how much I had really missed my parents. I thought of my mother. She had been killed by a drunk driver. She'd gone out one time while shooting a scene for a documentary she was doing. I was fuzzy on the details when I was little, but I learned from my dad that she had been filming a documentary on an old abandoned cannery my town had that lay just outside the town's borders. It had been abandoned because during the 1960s, as it was found that the cans of food that place was producing were tainted with botulinum bacterium, and several people had died and become sick in my town with botulism. My mother had decided to do a documentary for my town's history department, and she had left earlier that morning. Apparently, while she was returning from a long day of shooting, a drunk driver had come veering down the highway near the cannery and had run her over. My father said her injuries were horrific. Her head had been completely obliterated like a hard-boiled egg that's been squashed under a heavy force. She had lacerations and deep cuts all over her body from the car. The doctors had said that she had died instantly. We were devastated when we had gotten the news. My father was nearly catatonic, and I wept bitterly for days. It was a very hard time. I watched some more videos for a while, and then decided to stop. As nice as it is to be able to watch the videos, they filled me with remorse. I had enough of being tortured by old times. I tossed the VHS from the TV back into the box with the others, and then I stopped. There was this one VHS, but it wasn't like the others. It was black like every other tape, except it didn't have a title. I picked it up and studied it. It was utterly blank. It was the only one like it in the entire house as far as I could see. Everything else had been labeled, or at least had a movie logo of some sort. I wondered what the hell it was. I put it inside of the TV and decided to watch it. I wish I hadn't. It was blank for a while. I knelt there by the TV screen as an electric buzzing noise came out of the speakers. Suddenly, the screen blinked black and white, and there was an image. It was my mother in a business suit on the couch in our old living room. She had a warm smile, and she began to speak. She introduced herself and then instantly started to speak about what she was doing. As you may have already guessed, it was about the history film. She talked about the town's history, what it meant to her, and what she was doing the film about. The introduction ended, and the screen went black. It then faded to a selfie shot of my mom walking down a busy street. She was holding the camera to herself in a selfie vlogger type style, and she started to talk. She was talking about how she was walking down the street to the factory and how she was right nearby it. I saw that in the background there were some trees changing their colors into yellow and orange, indicating it was early autumn, and that my mother was indeed on the outskirts of town. Her camera shook as she walked, the sky an orange hue from the then setting sun. It had to be about 5 or 6 in the evening. She turned the camera away from herself and proceeded to point it at an old rickety shack-like building. Except it was much larger. The building was decaying, with the metal that was used to create the walls of the structure being heavily rusted, and what wood remained of the place being black with rot. There were what I assumed to be the remains of plaster and bricks, though now they resembled a heap of assorted colors and dirty shapes of chipped stones. My mother panned the camera around her, the sky darkening with each passing minute as she described the history of the building. I wasn't all that interested, so I can't really remember what she was talking about. What I do remember is just how creepy the building looked in the darkening sky. I was surprised my mother was so comfortable making this video, with the silhouettes of the neighboring trees adding the macabre of the scene. She rambled on for a while, and then she went to the entrance of the building. It was a large oak door, painted red, and crisscrossed with white beams of wood. Not unlike a barnyard door. She set down her camera and walked over to the door. Her upper body was out of shot, and the camera showed her struggling to wrench the door open. It did, and the screen went black suddenly. She was inside of the building the next time the screen came up. She was panting, and she explained she had a hard time coming in due to the building's age. I couldn't really see anything inside of the factory, as she was using a flashlight to guide her way in an utterly pitch-black building. A skinny beam of light illuminated the place, revealing the plaster walls in a terrible shape, the plaster chipped and mold growing in the crevices, dirt in piles among the tattered and beat-up floorboards. And the rusted and bent metal benches where workers would have spent hours canning food and packaging shipments. My mother set her camera down on one of these table benches, about mid-height, say 3 or 4 feet off the ground. She must have forgotten it was recording because she didn't bother turning it off. She left her flashlight nearby so that the camera was showing a shot of a nearby door. One that was dim, but still light enough to clearly see shapes and outlines. My mother took out what I believe was a disposable Kodak picture camera and began to take pictures of the interior of the place. I heard the sound of the plastic dial as it turned and a small flash of light as the camera flashed to take a picture. Just off screen. I noticed something while I watched. As my mother was blissfully taking pictures of the interior of the factory, I noticed a shape shifting near the doorway. It started to approach, and due to the angle of the camera, I could see legs and a torso, but not a face. It was clearly a man. He was walking slowly, and he seemed to be carrying something. As he got closer, I could see the black jeans and tattered and worn leather jacket as he was wearing, as well as black gloves and a clearly discernible baseball bat. It glinted in the light, letting me know it was metallic in model. My heart skipped a few beats as I watched this man come to a stop at the doorway, creeping quieter than I ever thought humanly possible. He stopped and seemed to face the direction of my mom. He just stood there, leaning on his baseball bat. My mother, meanwhile, was humming a tune as she proceeded to take more pictures of the old place. I was utterly terrified for her, and I covered my mouth in horror. I heard my mother's footsteps and saw the back of her jeans as she turned and noticed the man. She screamed. The man lunged at her, taking the bat in his hands. He struck her as hard as he could, and I heard my mother scream loudly in pain, and the sound of the bat colliding with her skull with a sickening bam. I heard her body crumple to the floor and her start to cry loudly.
No. No.
She hollered as she began to scuttle backwards away from the man. The man crouched down and took the bat a second time, both of them now off screen. I heard my mother scream even louder, and there horrid sounds of metal hitting bone. I heard my mother's cries become muffled. I heard some liquid spatter and drip. I heard a gasp and a long, pained moan. I heard a grunt, and the man came back onto the screen. He seemed to be carrying something heavy, and I saw the arm of my mother, limp and covered in blood. He struggled to carry her, and he turned backwards towards the camera, causing it to knock over and onto the floor. It showed a new shot now of the feet of the deranged mystery killer. I heard the man grunt again, and something heavy fell onto the bench the camera had recently been on. I heard a loud thack as he brought the bat down very hard onto my mother's face. How do I even know it was her face? I know because after that happened, he let my mother fall. Her body fell and it landed right in front of the camera. Her face covered the entire shot. I screamed out in horror as it suddenly appeared. It was a bloody pulp of mashed face, bone and flesh. Her eyes were a red-white color. Her nose and mouth combined into a gaping maw of a wound that oozed blood. Her hair was matted and tangled, it too covered in blood. Her teeth were broken, and pieces clung to the edges of what were once my mother's lips. I stopped the tape right there. I couldn't bear to watch a single second more. I stared in sorrow and abhorrence of what lay before me. Her bashed-in face and bloody skull stayed on the screen, the lines of the VHS twitching and causing the frame to flicker every so often. I was left sitting in my dead father's living room, crying in despair. Everything was now pitch black, with only the light of my dead mother's face to illuminate it. It's been a few hours since I've watched the tape, and I'm not sure what I should do now. I have so many questions that can't be answered. Why did my mother go to this place alone and at night? And is this tape even real? If it isn't, how could someone even film this? But it was too real, far too real to be faked. I've seen my mother scared before, and she had absolute terror in her eyes as she had backed away from that man. I'm scared to look at anything else in my father's house now. There's still tons of rooms filled with more boxes, and God only knows what other fucked up shit I could find next. I've been traumatized by what I've watched, and I need someone to tell me what to do. I can't get this one question out of my mind. Why did my father have this tape?